racing has undergone something of a monumental change in the last couple of years. It's gone from a world of screwdrivers and pliers, an analog world, into a completely digital world. The bikes have changed into electronic giants, and adjusting them, well, no more analog, it's all digital, laptops and electronics. And nothing shows this change more than the South African Superbike Championship, and in particular, the BMW pits and the Bmw Hp4. Well, the BMW team in this South African Championship are using what's called an HP4. It's a version of the S1000RR, a higher spec version, and it comes standard with a vast array of electronics. And to help talk me through them is Noddy van Groenen, who is the top chief mechanic in this team. Noddy, I mean, I don't know where to start. Even drive modes, you can adjust drive modes, can't you?
Yeah.
Between what?
You've got 4 modes. You've got rain, road, race, and slick mode.
And they're affecting other electronics on the bike as well, aren't they?
100%. They affect your lean angle, your aggression. If you're in rain, you want less aggression, you want a more subtle type of ride. The slick is the more aggressive one, where you've got a lot more increased lean angle and a lot less DTC interaction.
Electronics also extend to ABS. Now that's on or off. What are the riders using generally?
In race conditions, we do deactivate the ABS.
Okay. Suspension as well, that can also be adjusted from the handlebar, can't it?
Indeed, yeah. In slick mode, you can go up or down in DTC.
So DTC being the traction control?
Yeah, dynamic traction control. That is the aggression of the DTC. You can adjust.
The suspension itself is, what's the proper term? It's adaptive.
Yeah, it's active suspension.
So it's actually measuring as you're going along, and what? Stiffening and loosening off the suspension?
Objective is to keep the motorcycle as level as possible at all times. So if you get a dip in the front will let go, the rear will let go to balance it out, and vice versa.
And there's, of course, one extra piece of electronic wizardry in there that helps the riders get off the line, doesn't it? What's that, Noddy?
The launch control. It's got a light. As you rev it up, you get about 6,000 RPM. The light it'll flash and then become stagnant. Their recommendation is when it becomes stagnant, it's then time to actually pull off. As a matter of fact, most riders like Christopher on the S1000RR pulls off at 4,500 RPM.
4.5 on a bike that revs up to what?
14.2.
Chris Leeson is currently the man for the BMW Hp4 team in this championship. Chris, you're currently running second. I'm pretty sure this will have been the first time you've ever worked with such an involved electronics package. Has it been an easy learn, or are you still getting to grips with it?
No, look, luckily we have Rob Holder, which is my boss, and also like one of our main technicians. Because without him and Noddy, obviously this bike won't run like it is at the moment.
Does it then always sort of agree with what you feel? You go out, do a few laps, you come in, you talk to your technicians. Is it backing up what you feel, or is it sometimes showing you different things that you're not feeling?
No, most of the times it is quite spot on. So if I tell Noddy other bikes maybe got a bit of a patter, or it just feels like it's hydraulicking at the end of the front forks, then they can kind of see and overlay what I'm saying to them on the computer, and most of the times it does correlate one-on-one.
So where does it help most then, Chris? Is it in suspension setup? Is it in the ability to use more of the power through traction control? Where do you find it helps most?
It's a bit of everything. From traction control, you set your launch control, suspension, and also even your riding. You know, a lot of riders tend to get into a bit of a comfort zone. And then also they can tell you, look, your bike does seem to work all right, but it's also a bit of your riding. You can up your riding a little bit.
So from Chris Leeson, we come to his teammate, Ryan Ottens. As you can see, is a slightly bigger chap. You don't want to be arguing with this bloke in the pits. That must affect the way you ride the bike in a big style. I've seen you riding. You're a bit more aggressive with this thing than Chris is.
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, I'm roughly 40 kgs heavier than the rest of the field. And I do have to ride a bit harder, you know. I've got to get on the gas earlier. I've got to run more corner speed. I've got to try brake later, but it's all part of the fun.
Well, now you've got this electronic, help in almost every respect to the bike. I was about to say it's useful being able to overlap the information from yours to his, but it probably isn't, is it? Because you are so different.
Yes, we do try, we do overlap, and on certain things we can help each other, but I am pretty much on my own based on the difference on weight. I got to figure it out myself.
Where is it helping you most? Is it on your suspension? Is it on your throttle application? Where do you find it best?
Well, Rob starts from head to toe. You know, without Rob Holder, it literally is impossible to race an HP4.
I was quite interested to see you guys working with grip. I mean, we all imagine that you want 100% grip, the rear tyre sticking all the time, but I overheard you saying that you actually wanted a bit of spin in the rear tyre occasionally to help you get the bike turned.
Yes, well, depending on the track. At a track like Zwartkops, we actually want wheel spin, and that's what Rob and I have just done. We've given me more wheel spin for the next session in order to steer the bike. So as we touch the throttle, it starts wheel spinning and it gets us to hold a better line.
In terms of you as a rider, is it always a help, or sometimes are you disagreeing with what the technicians are telling you? You just don't believe it, sort of thing?
No, generally speaking, Rob and I actually work quite well together, and I'll come in and I'll say to him that I'm not happy with X or Y, and the data shows on the computer. So generally speaking, up to date, we haven't had issues where he says something and I disagree, so far so good.
Well, you've heard all the riders explaining how they manage to work with all the electronics, and the name that keeps popping up is Rob. And this is Rob Holder. He's the general manager of Motorrad South Africa, but he's also the manager of the team. And Rob, you sat like some evil Bond villain in front of a bank of computers, and we could be at NASA. How has racing changed in the space of the last couple of years, and especially this HP4 has completely changed the game, hasn't it?
It's taken a dynamic shift. If you look at what we had 2 years ago, we started with a basic electronic system on a standard double R, which took a bit of getting used to. And the big jump to the HP4 with the electronic suspension was the next step up. So it's been a tough learning curve to get back into it, to understand what the electronic values do to the suspension. But once we're on top of it now, I think we're really getting going.
Where is it helping you most on the bike? Is it the suspension, or is it the ability to optimize grip, for instance?
I think it's a whole package. What we do is I look at the data logger and I see what the bike is doing in the different corners, how much wheel spin we've got, and I talk to the rider and just make sure that we're all on the same path.
Well, how many adjustable variables are we talking about?
Well, if you go through them, you've got ignition, you've got fueling, you've got engine braking. Then in the DTC map, you've got the circuit grip level, you've got a pre-control. Then you've also got slip correction. You've also got torque control. So I can take the torque away in different varies as he goes over. And then torque increase, I'll bring it back again. And then I've got a launch control map.
Are these, I mean, I see you working on the system. It's obviously mapping out the circuit as it goes around. If you make an adjustment, is it an adjustment that applies to the whole track then? Or is it something that might be, working one corner and not the other?
Generally, you never replicate one exact lean angle versus speed at every corner. So you can fix one corner, which won't affect the rest of the corners.
This has kind of given you an insight straight into the rider's brain now. It's
well, it's certainly, for want of a better word, shut the riders up a bit because, they come and sit down and a lot of coaching goes on.
It's amazing stuff. It's a much more expensive option than the S1000RR, the standard one, which is already a stupendously fast and frightening bike. Is an average rider going to benefit from what the HP4 offers?
100%. It is just so technologically advanced. If you thought the double R had big band-aids in it, this is even better because you've got a suspension that's doing everything for you. Whereas the previous one, you would have to set it up. You'd have to mechanically set the bump and rebound, and this is doing it for you.
So it's not just about being fast, it's also about being safe and fast.